Buddy. It's been a while since we've done a live stream. I hope you guys tuned in yesterday to our Rebel Daily Drive, but I'm back with Mike, and we're going to talk about all this conference realignment and all the stuff going on, and some of these really, really funny social media comments on our opinion articles that we put out about the what UNLV standard should be that I kind of talked about yesterday. But I want to get your guys' perspective and all kinds of different perspective out there. So let's get it rolling. Mike, what's up, man? How you doing?
Doing pretty good. Happy to be here. Uh, Excited for all the changes we're seeing across UNLV sports. Happy that we picked up our baseball coach. Looks like a fantastic get there. I'm excited for realignment as well as what we've seen from football for spring practice. Excited about the roster that Pastor is building. And I'm excited that here on 1st of June, we have something to talk about the offseason that's positive.
Oh, I'm excited. I think I've probably done a lot of digging on these players for doing breakdowns and things like that, and it's great to see kind of the roster that Pastner is building and what he's trying to form, because you can definitely see what he's trying to build and what he's trying to do. We were just talking about it right before we hopped on. I think that you can correct me if I'm wrong. Just on paper, he looks like he's going towards a run and gun, back to the run and rebel style.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. And I think that's what fans want to see. I think we need a return to center, return to form, and going back to being the running rebels.
Oh, I think so too, and I think that there's going to be a lot of fun. I think to come with what do you call it? There you go. To this team and to this future. I mean, we were just talking about it. There's what's his name? Sebastian Mack just came from Chicago, played his high school ball in Vegas at Durango and Coronado. Went to UCLA, then went to Missouri. Now he's returning to what you can call, I guess, a homecoming. Because you kind of grow up in high school when you come wherever you are, right? So.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm always excited for our locals to be coming home. I think that's great. And hopefully this will be a destination for more locals as time goes on.
Yeah, I think so. And I think people forget he was the number 2 player in the state behind D-Don. UNLV missed on Mac, but they got D-Don. So it was kind of a win-loss back when Kruger was trying to recruit him. But it is what it is. He's finally going to put on the Rebel uniform like people wanted.
And, you kind of ask the what ifs. What if we had D-Don and Mac from back in that season? I kind of wonder how different that team would have been.
Yeah, would you say that was probably the beginning of the NIL era, right? You would think. So right. I wonder if they had to make a choice. Were they going to use their first shot at NIL really in basketball on D-Don, or were they going to use it on Mac, or were they offering them the same thing? Who knows?
And that's a great question. And to that point, though, if you consider how NIL has grown, the fact that we have Mac and Tyron Jones on the same roster shows that the amount of NIL we have to play with, if we don't have more of it, at the very least, it's better optimized.
Yeah, and kind of like we were talking about too, right before we hopped on, there's been a lot of talk about who's going to do what with the roster, who's going to play. Since they do have 11 commits, so you can kind of see, or I guess signees technically now, because they've officially announced them all, what they're trying to build and what they're trying to do. I mentioned it. I know me and you have been talking about it a ton, but I kind of mentioned it to you before we went live and in my Rebel Daily Drive yesterday. I think the starting 5 is pretty much going to be a veteran backcourt in Terrence Ford and Sebastian Mack. I don't see how he does not start Tyler Harris, just from the flashes of film from when he was at Portland, at Washington, what they're betting on getting. Just hoping the Vanderbilt thing was just a flash in the pan. Maybe it was a money bag chase. I don't know, obviously, but kind of that. And then obviously Tyron's probably your starting power forward. And I think he brought in MJ Thomas to start. And I think if you have MJ Thomas starting as your 5, you're going 6'8", 6'8", 6'8". You're going Mac and Terrence Ford at 6'3", 6'3", or 6'2", 6'3". And then your bench is Isaac in a similar, in my opinion, probably a similar role to what he was in last year. Part-time starter, part-time bench player. Your 7th, not in order, but probably your top tier. He's your 6th man. Probably your 7th man is Fumina. They have the big off the bench. Your 8th man is obviously going to be Dontrez Williams. And then your 9, 10, and 11 is probably the 2 freshmen and Cam Miles, because Cam Miles has always been pegged as an upside player. So we can see if he can crack the rotation, or it's guys that he has to bring in, because you would think he still has 2 or 3 spots to fill, don't you think?
Cam Miles, he was that player from Florida State, right?
Yeah, he was a freshman at Florida State last year. He played a lot early in the season. He had some flashes. He had a good game against Houston. I think he had another good game against another bigger Power 4. Then he really fell out of the rotation and didn't play much in ACC play. And then they hit the portal hard and kind of just replaced him. I think it was more of a mutual decision that he left, because when I interviewed him, he didn't really want to talk about the situation at Florida State. So I have a feeling it was – I'm just guessing. I'm just don't know. I didn't ask him because it seemed like a touchy subject, but he didn't seem to like that. He didn't like his experience at Florida State. So I would assume he's coming here as a freshman with a lot to learn, with a player that Pastner can develop. And I've seen on other podcasts that Pastner said that he's he could be the surprise of the class. So hopefully he is. And maybe one of them, turns into a superstar.
Yeah, you can always hope.
But the main thing that we're going to talk about, other than just touching on basketball a little bit, is we put out 2 opinion articles about what the standard for UNLV should be in the new Mountain West, and how UNLV has become the flagship program of the Mountain West, based off of how the money is played out in the GOR and how the football TV schedule came out. That it's very clear that UNLV is on the Mountain West pedestal and it's going to be showcased. And that was brought up just like we were talking about, and we've hit on a little bit, that week 0 game against Memphis being on Fox, and it being the first time UNLV's ever played a regular season game on Fox.
Lots of things to be excited about for that. Specifically on week 0, not that many teams are playing. All eyes are going to be on us. There's a good chance that that's going to be the showcased game of the week. I haven't seen what the SEC's put out yet, or the Big Ten, but there's a good chance that if you care about G6 football, that is by far going to be the match to watch. In terms of 2 teams that are going to be competitive on the field, they're going to play hard, that there's an actual consequence to a week 0 game that doesn't usually happen, right? Winner of this game is going to ride that for the rest of the season and may be that pick for the CFP.
You'd have to think too that, with how UNLV's schedule was built and constructed by Mullen this year, they have 3 big group of 6 games in the first 4 games of the season. And that doesn't count Cal, because you have right off the bat, you have Memphis on Fox. Then you have arguably the biggest game of the season, one of the 2 biggest games of the season in the Mountain West, right off the bat in week 1 at Hawaii. And then you have Akron. No, I'm sorry. Then you have North Texas right after that, where that's going to be another showcase for the G6. That game's on ESPNU. But you'd have to think North Texas is going to be just as good as they were last year, and they're going to be right back in contention to be in that that group of 6 CFP spot.
Yeah, right there. Mean Green. I think this is the first time we're returning to North Texas since we played in that bowl game. It might have been.
I think so.
Yeah, so that should be a fun one. I mean, you take a look. We have our home game with Memphis, and then we're on the road for a month. Like, we don't come back home until October 3rd. all of September we're going to be out of home, and all of the games in that schedule, with the exception of perhaps Akron, are all games of consequence. So right off the bat, you're going to know, returning into that home game from Cal, what this team is.
Oh, 100%. You're going to know. I mean, we were talking about this as well, that Cal may be coming into that game up. They play Clemson the week before. They have to go across the country and play Syracuse. They do play UCLA, which UCLA should be improved. They are going to be losing to UNLV or New Mexico, like maybe UNLV, but New Mexico, or schools like New Mexico, like they were last year. And you have to think that Akron's going to give UNLV a game. And it's very interesting to talk about what the football schedule looks like, because, with all the talk, with all the media and now the settlement and what the media deal is going to look like, showcasing week 0 on Fox and then having a big showcase game basically for the Mountain West Conference week 1, that has to do wonders for the ratings and the viewership for the Mountain West, because you're going to have the hating schools from the Pac-12 watching, because they're going to hate watch and hope that it just blows up in the Mountain West's face.
Yeah, there's always going to be some of that. It's part of what drives TV revenue. But hopefully we'll be able to build on what they had from last year and opening these games, and it'll be clear, hopefully by week 5, that there's a clear path to CFP for us.
Yeah, you'd have to think so, because you would assume with how these rankings are going to come out, they're probably going to put them, somewhere in the 50s, mid 40s, maybe early 50s. And if they beat Memphis week 0, they go to Hawaii and beat Hawaii, and then they beat Akron and North Texas, you have to assume going into that Cal game, they should be in the top 25.
Let me do a quick search here. It looks like preseason, if we're looking at ESPN SP Plus, UNLV right now is opening at 59th.
So where's Memphis, and Hawaii's ahead of them? No, UNLV's at the top of the Mountain West, right? So Hawaii's probably right below them. Memphis is above them, I think.
Let me take a look to see. Okay, so off the initial rankings, yeah, they got UNLV at 59, and then right above us, see, Cal is at 56, so they're right there. Boise's at 39.
Memphis is at 70, so that might not be a bigger win than they're expecting. I don't know what they're expecting from Memphis this year. Obviously, new coach and Charles Huff. That also is going to be a fun game because of those late season rumors that the Memphis fans tried to start about Dan going to Memphis. That was never going to happen. And all the Twitter beef that started. We'll see. Let's just end the Mullen Bowl right there. Let UNLV win that game. And I can't wait. I can't wait for football to start.
And obviously, with any of the preseason rankings, this is going to shift dramatically in just week 0. But right now, as it sounds, right beneath Memphis, North Dakota State is number 72, which is 6 rankings above Fresno State at 78. They're 1 rank above Air Force at 79. We got good old Purdue at 82. Hawaii at 84, right. Washington State at 85.
Honest question for you, and this is not a shot at Barry Odom, but do you realistically think that he wins more than 3 games this year?
That's a tough one. So he's overhauled his coaching staff almost as much as you possibly can. He's gotten rid of a lot of the coaches that migrated over there with him from UNLV, and on top of that, there's been a lot of movement on the roster. So Purdue has sunk a lot of money into football. And they become a school that's much more committed to winning than they are interested in winning. And regardless of what you think of Barry Odom, you can see it in the way that they're spending money, right? So even if Barry Odom doesn't figure it out this year, and I think there's a good chance that he still is on the other side of 6 wins, on the lower side of 6 wins, I think that Purdue is going to take and spend whatever it needs to in order to become a team. I guess that dances around the question just a little bit, but do I think they win more than 3 games? I think that they win. I think they might take 4.
Only reason I ask is because obviously they're ranked a little bit lower than what UNLV is, but they put their win total out and their win total is 3.5. So that's why I asked. Do you think they win more than 3 games? They don't have a lot of. I mean, but then again, who knows, right?
Right, you never know.
So I just answered. I just looked up the week 0. The only other I would say there's 2 other good games that on week 0, NC State and Virginia. That's a good game in the morning. North Carolina and TCU in the morning as well. But UNLV has all the games for the day will be done. The last kickoff before UNLV is Hawaii Stanford at 4:00. So that game should be over by the time UNLV Memphis kicks off. So it's UNLV Memphis prime time on Fox, showcasing the group of 6, really.
Yeah, it looks like they've got that 7 p.m. Pacific kickoff. And unfortunately, that does hurt us a little bit on the ratings just because it's so late on the East Coast. But we should have the attention of everybody that's west of Colorado if they're interested in football at that time.
I mean, you got to think everyone's going to be fiending for football, so everyone's going to be watching, probably betting on it too. So, yeah. But let's talk about the media deal, because I know that you mentioned that you worked on that. We're not going to talk about where, but you worked on that side of the media. What do you think of this settlement, and what do you think of what's going on with the Mount West and this media deal?
So to that, there's actually brand new news about that. At June 9th date, the next 90 days, but that initial June 9th one has been moved to at least before September 1st. So kind of curious what prompted that and why there's a move there. I mean, I'm not an attorney, so I don't know courtroom procedure, but I was under the impression that was all done and dusted and should have been ready for close. But
they put a stay notice in. You're right. Hearing set for June 9th with the stay notice of all deadlines in the case through August 31st, a lot of parties. So it looks like I don't know how to take that. Are we frozen? What just happened here, fellows? Were we frozen there for a second?
Might have been.
Okay. What I was gonna say was, like you just said, the stay order was put in today. They have until I was looking at JY's Twitter, because JY love him or hate him. People have different opinions on him. I think he does a great job getting information out there, and that's the least you can ask for. And yeah, here, I'll pull this up on my screen. Here, this should help. This is the stay order that you were talking about, right?
Yes, exactly.
So They have a hearing on June 9th. State deadline's to August 31st. So I wonder if they haven't agreed to anything yet. Like they agreed to settle, but they haven't agreed on the amount. And there's still a lot of digging to do.
Yeah, and I think that number is going to be something that's up in the air, and just at least going through the Twitterverse on people from both sides. Obviously, if you're a fan of one school on one side, whether it's the Mountain West or the Pac-12, you think that your team is going to come out on top. But in my experience on these types of deals, the art of a good compromise is that nobody is happy. And I've seen nothing that makes me think that that's the case in this situation. That's not going to be the case in this situation. Excuse me.
I think that what Chris, I don't know if JY put it out there. I think he put out a higher figure, but I think that it's going to be something like that Chris Murray said, the 55 cents on the dollar. Because that just makes the most sense. Each side, they still get what they want. It's just going to be a matter of how much is the 55 cents on the dollar. If that's the 80 million that everyone's talking about, does that include the money that they withheld? Does that not include the money that's being withheld?
And
to get it closer to the full amount, I think that's part of the stuff that they have to figure out.
Right, and I have no issues with that 55 cents on the dollar. I think the only big thing there is people seem to forget that these are two different settlement amounts that are getting crushed into one figure. But you have to look at each component separately. It's not just a one-shot, oh, well, we'll just take 15 off the back end and we'll call it good. No, this is specifically going to be UNLV and the departing schools, and then UNLV and the PAC. It's going to be treated separately, at least on the.
So what do you think of the people's opinion of that's been out there, whether it's on Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, whatever it's been, of if the settlement amount isn't what will make UNLV or Air Force happy, do you think UNLV and Air Force ultimately bolt and go, and Air Force tries to go to the AC and UNLV does try to go to the Pac-12? Is that still possible and on the table?
I don't think so, not since we have media rights already assigned and contracted out. At least for this particular deal, the Mountain West is going to remain largely the same, if not expanding. But for the present, Air Force and UNLV are going to be sticking around. I think all things said.
I didn't find anything in the grant of rights that showed anything, and that if something wasn't to what they liked, that they had an out.
Yeah.
So I don't think they have an out.
I think the only out that UNLV has is if it's moving up to a power conference.
Yeah,
and that's so valuable. You have to keep that if you have any realistic chance. And I'm not saying that UNLV is going to sign with like the Big 12 or with the ACC or anything like that in the near future, but if there's a chance and either of those conferences are looking to expand out, UNLV should keep that out. And if you're either of those conferences and you're not looking at UNLV, you're wrong. I'm sorry. If I'm looking to expand out west, the amount of programs that are out here are limited. I'm looking at UNLV and I'm looking at San Diego State. Those are the two programs I think at the top of everybody's list for expansion.
You could argue, the only other one I would say you could argue is you could argue that it's Boise State for somebody who wants a football only.
For football only, yeah. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Oregon State as well. I think of the remaining programs, it's a lot of what goes into media deals happens to be around your DMA, and that's the one thing that's holding back Oregon State. Is unfortunately, it's a little bit of a hassle for teams that want to schedule out there, right? Because you got to think about the logistics of, well, now I have to fly my team out to the West Coast, out to Portland, and then I've got to sit on a bus for an hour and 15 in order to get to where I'm going. And it's a little bit of a logistical nightmare. It's expensive. It's tough on visiting fan bases. And unfortunately, it's been the thing that's plagued schools like Oregon State and Washington State. However, with Boise, with UNLV, as well as with San Diego State, those issues are a little bit mitigated. You can fly directly into all three of those cities, and then it's a short ride to wherever the stadium is.
Yeah, and I think that what people don't realize is if it was going to happen, not saying I know if it will or not, but if that's what they're planning for and that's what the out is, and obviously it's not going to happen next year or two. Probably it will probably happen if it ever does, if it even does, probably closer to the end of the deal, probably 2030, 2031. That you're looking at, it makes too much sense for the Big 12 not to hit Vegas and not to hit San Diego, because you already have Phoenix, you have Tempe, you have Utah, and BYU. So you have Salt Lake and Provo, you have Colorado. It's all in the region. It's just it makes too much sense for them not to do it.
If I'm Arizona State, Utah, BYU, I am UNLV and San Diego State's biggest champion, and I'm screaming at the Big 12 Commission in order to pick up those two schools.
And to be honest, if we're talking about if they're not going after a G6, that the Big 12 is probably targeting Cal and Stanford. More, I think Cal and Stanford are more likely to go to the Big 12 than they are to go to the Pac-12. I'm not they're not going to go from a Power 4 to a G6. They're going to go from a Power 4 to a Power 4. And logistically, it still makes sense for them to play in the Big 12 where these schools are, and they're all in the region.
And whether or not you agree or disagree that Cal and Stanford would make that move, I do believe that a school like Stanford, not so much Cal, but definitely Stanford, would be independent before they'd go to the Pac-12. And that's just looking at it historically, right? Because historically, schools like Stan and Calford have pushed back on any school that didn't, quote unquote, meet the prestige or academic repertoire of schools that wanted to go into the old Pac-12. And I can definitely see themselves being a school that could afford to stay out of it if they had to.
Oh, I agree. That's why I think that, all the talk of if the ACC implodes, that's going to be just the Cal and Stanford going to the Pac-12. I don't think that's – I think that's the very, very last resort.
Right. And let's say that the ACC did implode, right? And you ended up losing Florida, you lost Clemson, you lost Miami, and then you lose, Virginia Tech, right? Let's say that you're down the 5 schools. Well, you're taking USF, right? And you're taking a good hard look at Tulane. You're taking a good hard look at Memphis. What about your other 2 options? Well, you still got SMU that's out in the middle of the country. You got Cal and Stanford. It makes sense to build a West Coast region. And whether that means that you take UNLV, you take SDSU, you take Oregon State, you look at New Mexico, you could look at a viable number of options in order to build out something that's a little bit more regional and a little bit more budget friendly for all the schools involved.
I feel like if you're going to do that, I think people don't realize that Oregon State's football program has not been historically very good, no matter whether it was in the Pac-12 or not, and the Power 4 or not. And I think if you're looking at it from the value that a city or region would bring, I think you look at Boise before you look at them. That's just me, though.
I mean, if you're looking about football only, yeah, but Oregon State's got a historically good baseball team. I don't think they play baseball in Oregon State. Boise's been one of those schools that they've had the luxury of being able to throw extra money into football, and that's just because they don't have really a whole lot of other sports. Like if you look at
if you're talking about it from that perspective too, Boise's pretty much under Leon Rice is a year in year out NCAA tournament team. You can't say that about Oregon. You can't say that about Oregon State.
Oh, I agree. And
so I think they would bring more value. And I said this on my recording on yesterday. that if there's a program that UNLV wants to be, especially in football, Boise State is who you want to be.
Oh,
You
definitely.
want to dominate. You want to dominate. And, Boise State was picked to win every football conference they were in years ago. And this year will probably be number 19. So it's like that's who you want to be. That's who you want to talk to. And that's the standard you want to actually.
Yeah, and the other thing that Oregon State has going against it, like if we're talking about DMA, and for context for the people listening, I was a launch member for Paramount Plus. I worked for CBS for quite a number of years, at least on their tech side as a TPM. But the thing about Corvallis is we're talking about Metro DMA and density, right? Corvallis is looking, their city's just under 60,000 people. If you're looking at their metro region, just under 100,000 people. Now, if we're talking about a city population of 60,000, for context, Pahrumph's got 45,000. And if you want to talk about a tiny town, it's not a good thing that Corvallis is not that far off the number.
And I think that people forget about that, and the whole town, if we'll go to a game on a weekend, because that stadium holds 38,000, but if they're bad, nobody goes, and that was shown when Oregon State lost to all those Mountain West schools a couple years ago.
Yeah, and it hurts when your stadium is impacted like that, when you don't have that many people on the stands, especially on the home side. I think that, it's not as simple as I laid out. And yeah, there's a number of Oregon State fans that are living in the Portland area that you can't really account for. But just in general, if we're looking at overall potential of a region, it's hard to justify Oregon State over Boise in that regard.
Yeah, I don't think there's any way you can justify it in general. I think that if there were expansion, if there were all this talk, because that's where this talk is going to lead to eventually, it's going to come down to if UNLV can continue to win, and nobody's asking. I think the unrealistic expectation that these other schools have is that UNLV is going to get 60,000 fans in Allegiant Stadium. They're not. That's not going to happen. No matter how good they get, that's not going to happen. Can they get the 45, 50? Maybe. But they're not going to sell out Allegiant. That's just they're not going to. So if they can have a consistent, in my opinion, get to the CFP at least once, be in the consistent, this can lead into our next conversation about the expectation that UNLV needs to set for itself. That, yeah, fans are going to have the expectation that UNLV should win the league every single year. Is that realistic? No, it's not. But can they win 8, 9, 10 games on a consistent basis, get 40,000 butts in seats, and make it appealing for other schools and other conferences? Absolutely, they can.
Yeah, and to regards to your previous point about the stadium capacity there, if getting to 45,000 means that we have to lean into a lot of visiting teams coming in to go watch whatever their team has played at Allegiant. And I think that that's doable. I think that there's enough interest here from businesses in Las Vegas that, I don't know, well, if you could build a Circa package or a Stations package where you can bundle it with here's your Allegiant ticket to fly in, and then your 2 nights in exchange for your resort fee, here's $100 food credit bundle for your stay, and as well as transportation to the stadium. There's somebody out there that can build that marketing to make an inclusive package that makes sense to the visiting fan. I think if you could pull that off and you could tap the right.
Hey, Tillman Fertitta, we're talking to you, okay?
But if you can build those right projects or those right packages, I do think that you could have enough people interested to coming to Vegas, even if it's let's say that you're a Browns fan, and let's say that, I don't know, Miami of Ohio is
actually
coming in.
Sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but actually, Now that I think about it, Circa did something like that. I think. Oh no, they did a contest. Oh yeah, here we go. They did. What did they do? It was a contest trying to win tickets to the Mountain West tournament, and they partnered with the Mountain West. And the deal was 2 night stay, VIP tickets to the semifinal and finals, and post game drinks at their Legacy Club.
Yeah.
But I agree. Like Boyd Gaming and the California Hotel should be pushing and partnering deals with the University of Hawaii. North Dakota State's gonna travel. So
yeah.
So partner with an Allegiant flight to Fargo, from Vegas to Fargo, to direct flight for the game. Like even last year, UNLV tried to do it last minute, but they did a package up in Boise, a hotel stay, a flight, and a game ticket. It was like $600 to go to Boise, game ticket and flight, but they tried to do that. So I don't see why. Allegiant's there. You play at Allegiant Stadium. Use your partnership. Use the Raiders. Use whatever you can to get fans in there. And we saw it can happen because we saw it in 2024 when they had 45,000 for Boise and you had 40,000 for Reno and you had 36, 37 for Syracuse.
Yeah.
It's doable. It's doable. They just got to do it.
Can you imagine if they could find a way to leverage that Raider partnership, right? And I don't think you'd ever find this type of coordination across the board just because there's too much bureaucracy. But if you could have, let's say, because I know that they're coming up, if USC, for example, if you have USC coming here to play at Allegiant Stadium, and that's going to be a few years off. But if you were to package it and if you were able to line it up with like the Rams coming to Vegas and you could have your 3 days in Vegas, here's your USC ticket for a noon kickoff with USC UNLV. And then on top of that, on Sunday, you can watch your Rams play. Here's your 3 p.m. kickoff on Sunday. If you could manage to package or bundle that type of deal, you're going to get a whole lot of interest in the city, and that's going to drive a whole lot of business value.
Yeah, but the problem is they don't want to play their UNLV and the Raiders back to back.
Well, you need to, as far as I heard, they need 24 hours in order to convert the stadium, but it's just a hypothetical.
Play that UNLV game on play that UNLV game on Friday night, or put that Raider game on Monday Night Football.
Put it on Monday night, or if UNLV has to play on Friday, let them play Friday. Whatever you need to do in order to get it done. I think that there's enough interest for organizations out there wanting to support the city, wanting to support the fan bases, that you'd be able to build a bundle that caters to them.
So let's talk about, I put out an opinion article today, and maybe the title riled up some other fan bases because there was a lot of talk about it on other social media platforms that weren't Twitter. I titled the article that UNLV doesn't need to win every championship to justify their stay into the Mountain West. But I say that because winning every single championship every single year is a very unrealistic expectation to have as a fan, let alone as an athletic department. Should the goal be to win the Mountain West every year? Yes, absolutely, especially in football and basketball. But, shit happens every single season. Quarterbacks get hurt, coaching changes happen. You have bad games in February, and that ruins your March Madness run. You have injuries like UNLV had last year. Yes, those can be tacked as excuses, but those happen. That's just life. That's just athletics. So what is a realistic, in your opinion, what is a realistic expectation for UNLV fans to have? Obviously, for football, we can throw women. The expectation under Lindy is to win women's basketball every single year, regardless, because that's just what they've done. So, what is the realistic expectation for UNLV? And we can do football and basketball for now. From now, starting this year, going to the end of 2031, what is the realistic expectation for UNLV in the new Mountain West?
Well, every fan wants to win or else, and it's kind of funny that you see in almost every single sport, if you're losing, then there are plenty of people in the fans that think that they can do the coach's job better than they can. But realistically, so long as UNLV can be competitive in those sports, and I'm not talking about going 6-6. I mean, making a concerted effort to make it to that championship, even if you miss out on a couple of years. But so long as you make it to that game where you're in the top 3 every season, I think it makes sense. Same thing with basketball. There's enough diversity there, and the way that recruiting works these days, where you can overhaul and turn over a roster in a single offseason, I think we should be finishing in the top 3. I think that in those games, we should be clearly dominant against, beat teams we're supposed to beat, be competitive against teams that are better than us.
So, but here's my question. UNLV, because everybody likes to bring it up, and it's always the topic of conversation of how they've only had 3 good years of football. Why is this expectation so unrealistic? Why are these fans like this? They've been historically bad. Should the expectation realistic be 8, or is it win the conference every single season? Because because some of these, I'm just putting out there, other fan bases call us out for it. Other fan bases call UNLV fans out for it. That the expectation that UNLV is just going to go 12-0, 12-0, 12-0, 11-1, 12-0, that's unrealistic. Make the CFP every year. Should it be a realistic thing with the new Mountain West? Yeah, it's unrealistic. Should you be 6-2, 7-1 in conference play every year? Is that the realistic expectation? Is it 8-4, 9-3 with 2 good conference losses 2 good non-conference losses and 1 loss in conference play, but still making a conference championship? Is that the realistic expectation? What is that new standard? Do you think, if that helps you a little bit, what do you think rationally makes sense?
I think making it to the Mountain West Finals every year makes sense. And if you're not there, you better be at that spot right before it. If you can't be a top 2 team, at least be at 3rd. And, there are so many things that go into a season. And you yourself, having coached, you can do everything right and still lose. Just like UNLV can do everything right, we could punch out a 10-win season and still not be in the conversation for the CFP. It's just the way things go sometimes. That's not a decision that's up to us. So I think looking at things that we can control, I think we can control our own conference play. And I think we should at least be competitive within our own conference, within the G6, rather than looking for, hey, this is a year we take on Alabama and win. I think that's just unrealistic.
Yeah, I think too, like I wrote about it in the opinion piece. And if you guys haven't checked it out, it's up on the website. I posted it on other social medias. I forgot to post on Twitter, so I'll let you guys. I'll post it there probably tonight. But the expectation should be, I think Mountain West Championship is the realistic expectation, because who knows how long New Mexico is going to be competitive. Hawaii is going to be Hawaii. They're going to have their ups. They're going to have their downs. That's just the realistic of how it goes. North Dakota State, they may be good. They may not be good. They may take some time. We don't know. It's a very open and vague conversation with them. They could take them a couple years to be really, really good, or they could be running the Mountain West right off the bat. Nobody really knows. So the only thing I think, the only expectation that UNLV can control is if and when, because we know it's going to happen, when Dan Mullen leaves UNLV, whether it's after this season or next year, do they continue to take that next step? Do they still invest $4 million a year into a head coach? Of keeping what's been rolling. And Answer should be yes. I assume the answer is yes with the athletic department, but can they keep it going? Can they do those certain things? And their expectation, I think, for this year is CFP or bust. And it should be, right? With the weaker Mountain West, Boise getting there the last 3 seasons, finally breaking through, that should be the expectation for this year. Whatever happens after Dan leaves is up in the air, in my opinion.
Oh, absolutely. And to that, there have been a number of people that have questioned how committed Eric Harper is to his job. And to those people, I think the fact that we have Dan Mullen speaks a lot to how much he cares about the program. He could have hired almost anybody else. He could have hired a Nick Rolovich. He could have hired a Mora. He could have hired any number of names that would have sounded like, you know what, that sounds pretty decent. But he went big and he won big. And Dan Mullen has done a lot to change this program. And I believe that Dan Mullen has made such a lasting impact on this program that even after he's gone, whether that's on to whatever's next or retiring or whatever he wants to do, I do think that he loves the city, but, eventually every Father Time is undefeated. Eventually he's going to retire. He's going to leave. I think that he's done enough work that UNLV has the resources to be able to get somebody appropriate or go after whoever they want that's right for the program.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I put out that, and I've been starting to bring it up, what is the realistic expectation? Because Dan Mullen sets a certain bar. Does that bar continue to be pushed to another level to try to get to the Power Four? Because obviously that's the expectation that the athletic department is probably going to try and take. Is it going to go that direction? Or do you like where you are and then go after a Rolovich, just as an example, or more a Rolovich, right? Do they go back to that kind of level? Do they try to find another Barry Odom? Does Barry Odom come back if he gets fired from Purdue? Right? That would be ironically funny, in my opinion. But that could be, they could easily. It goes back to what you, excuse me, what you were talking about. If Purdue's starting to dump money into the program, and they stop winning games, and Barry's fired at the end of the season, and Dan leaves to go take a big job, do they go back after Barry to bring him back to Vegas? What is that? Because Barry started the standard. Do you bring him back to continue the standard, right? So what does that realistically look like, and where do they go? And obviously the basketball side. Basketball's expectation should be goal number 1 is to get back to the NCAA tournament. Goal number 2 is to be in the top 2 or 3 consistently, if not leading the league every year in the regular season going into the Mountain West tournament and being on the bubble. Because that should be the goal with the expanded tournament, that they should be on the bubble every single season. Does that mean that they're going to build it that way? I don't know. Is that the goal and hope? I think so. But we need to see with the football side what happens and that's why I bring up the 8-9 wins is if Dan leaves, it's inevitable if he does, in my opinion. I don't think he's staying here forever. But if he leaves after 2 years or this year or next year, whenever it is, does the new standard become, like you said, Mount West Championship every year? Or are fans going to be happy with 8-9 wins and appearances in the Mount West Championship?
Right. And it's speaking to those people that keep bringing up that we've had decades of disappointment. Look, I'm right there with you. There have been a number of times I've been out in Sam Boyd Stadium in November, and it's a gut check whether or not I wanted to come out to watch UNLV play when we were on our 2-win seasons. I get that, and I understand that, and there's no fan that wants to go back to that. However, on the flip side, I think expecting 10 wins every year is unrealistic. 8 or 9 makes sense to me. That means that you're taking most of your conference game and you're winning, you're going half on your out of conference. I think that that's realistic. Making the bowl game, if those exist in a few years, and doing well, not necessarily winning, but at least making it to one.
Yeah, and that's why I say, like, you have people out there say it's 12-0 or bust, 12-0 and bust, 12-0 and bust. Like, I just don't think that's realistic. Is that should be the goal when you have somebody like Dan Mullen? Absolutely, it should be 11-1. Your one losses to Cal. You win the Mountain West. You win the Mountain West championship. But after Dan, because Dan's not staying until 2031.
No.
I could probably bet bet on that. So is it next year? Is it the year after? What do those new realistic expectations come? Obviously, they're going to be the marquee program at that point, especially if they make a CFP. So is it the CFP being the viewer, being because I'm just playing the advocate side. Is that the thing what you do every single year that what you want? Because obviously that should be the goal, but are fans going to be upset if they go like they did in Barry's first year, 9-4 with a bowl game win? Or sorry, they lost that bowl game. But you get what I'm saying. If they go 9-4, make the championship and get to a bowl game, or they go like they did his second year, 10-4, losing the Mountain West championship, but they beat Cal in their bowl game. Or like last year, you win 10 games, but you lose your bowl game. Is that an okay expectation? Or V fans is going to be disappointed? Or is that just the new standard? And I think that's why I put out those two opinion pieces, because you have to realize that like expectations are rising. The more and more pressure the athletic department is putting on these programs to be very good teams. Lindy has been known to set the standard with women's basketball. Now it's getting a new baseball guy in there. The guy from CSN was a great hire. It's getting a former PGA guy to keep the golf program going to the standard that it should be. It's what happens when Dan leaves. Who do they bring in next? Can Pastner be the right guy to bring it to the expectation of getting to the NCAA tournament every single year? Because that's always the goal. Like, we have to sometimes you have to, like, in my opinion, look at it from 1,000-foot lens. Like you tell me to do that all the time. Look at it from 1,000-foot lens and like look at it from the outside. And I think that's kind of what you have to do here. Is 12-0 real? Like, I would be happy. I know the sports books this year put UNLV at 7.5, but if they go 10-2, let's just say 10-2, and they make the Mountain West championship, and they're still a fringe top 25 team, I'd be happy with that. I don't really. They're going to be UNLV fans that are mega disappointed. But if your two losses are, let's just say it's to, I'm just throwing this out there, you lose to Hawaii in week 1 and you lose to Cal, but you still have 10 wins, you rattle it off, you rebound your season, you make the Mountain West championship. Jackson Arnold or Orgy lights the conference on fire. Like, and then you go to the Mountain West championship, you win it, then you're in all the CFP talk. Is that still a successful season? Right?
Oh, definitely. I think that's definitely a successful season, and I think fans should enjoy the ride while they can, because change is inevitable. At some point we regress, at some point we get better. I think that this next season, Dan, as you've seen from spring practice, Dan went all in on the roster. I think that if this is going to be his final year, we should live in the present and we should enjoy what we have from him. I'm not saying that he's made a decision on whether or not he's staying, but to your point, the only thing that we know of is this year, and that's what we should be excited for. And I think that if it's a 10-win season, it's a 10-win season, and that's fantastic. I think if it's a 9-win season, it's a 9-win season, and that's fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. And I think obviously the expectation for basketball is make the NCAA tournament, because this league you can't have the Mountain West become like it was last year, be a 1-bid Mountain West. It has to be a 2 or 3 bid league every single year to keep the credibility up to where it is. And that's just not on UNLV. That's on New Mexico. That's on Grand Canyon. That's on Reno. That's on these other programs as well to hold up their end of the bargain. But the only thing UNLV can't control is what Pastner puts on the floor. and the product that Pastner puts on the floor. And I think that when you cope those two together, and we can go through real quick before we end this some of the comments on these articles because they're very, very funny. Like, these other fan bases have a really, really weird, unrealistic expectation for UNLV, and it's I don't know if it's they just don't read sometimes what we put out there, but like, here we go. Here's from Facebook, because this is the title. Obviously, if you guys haven't seen it, that UNLV stayed in Mount West and it's being treated like a flagship program. They stayed in the Mount West because they couldn't beat Boise. They stayed because they got paid, and they don't want to be a middle team in a better conference, which I assume this guy's probably a Pac stan. They were always treated like the flagship, even though if they weren't. It's bad for both. Keyword now. Mountain West is a basketball conference. They are the flagship because of their history. They're not the Rebs that Tark coached, but there's no reason they won't be again someday. It's not bad for UNLV. There was never they were never the media draw that Boise is, but now they would be a bigger fish. They get, that's from it looks like a Washington State fan. Like, some of these comments are good, or like, why go to the crappy Mountain West 2.0? Like, some of them are good, some of them are funny, some of them are. Where's the other one? Is it this one? They stayed.
It's the same one.
Yeah, hold on. Let me pull up the other one. Is it this one? Here's the other one. Here's my other opinion article about what the expectation should be. New Mexico, I'm sorry, but this one is not true in any sense. Maybe basketball recently, but New Mexico is not a better program than what UNLV is. Irrelevant since Stark left. What makes them a flagship? Because they're paying them to stay. They haven't won in decades. I assume he meant North Dakota State is running them in football. Could even see New Mexico making noise if they can keep back. UNLV is just a bunch of overpaid loudmouths. Like, some of them are very funny. Like, it was Instagram that had a funny one too. Dylan Burke's flight school. I don't know what that is. Where'd it go? This is New Mexico's conference now. Excuse me, now that Boise's gone, they should be in the top team, Mountain West, especially given our budget compared to these other schools. They'll pay them all off. Where's the other one? There was a really funny one on the other one. If you're not following me on Instagram, follow our page on Instagram as well. If they weren't before, they definitely are now. UNLV, New Mexico, and Hawaii are the premier football teams.
That's true.
UNM dog walks UNLV in a majority of sports, but that's cute. I see Hawaii being premier and not going.
You should expand that comment on the replies.
So a Utah State fan actually defended UNLV, which I know is a miracle, but actually put the head-to-head records out of what they are in each sport. For context, New Mexico, for as much as people want to say better basketball program they've been compared to UNLV, they're only 10-9 against UNLV the last decade. Football's 4-3 in favor of UNLV. New Mexico baseball is 8-2 against UNLV, but softball is 8-2. UNLV softball is 8-2. Women's basketball is 11-6. It says you are in fact incorrect. There's no dog walking going on, and UNLV has better programs in most sports. Yeah, there's some funny ones. Smart move, I think. Where's this one? Because fuck Reno, or FUNR. Do you think I think he's trying to say sorry ass Reno fans rep glorious Las Vegas Golden Knights. Ironically, yeah, VGK is very popular in Reno and in this state. So because they're the flagship of the new Mountain West, there's a hidden one too. There's the Lobo one. It says UNLV is one of the worst all-time FBS football programs, has a losing record versus all Mountain West teams except New Mexico. They are far from the flagship. Well, don't tell that to Gloria Navarez because they're being paid like they're the flagship. And they've been in the Mountain West tournament or conference title game 3 of the last 4 seasons. So,
Yeah, definitely.
That's all I got. Mike, do you got anything else you want to touch on before we hop off here?
No, it's that was a good conversation. Go Rebels.
Go Rebels. And I think me and you will do a couple more before, I guess, what's the next? Summer ball, technically? Or does it go straight to fall?
It would go to fall camp. So these next 2 months, the teams or players on the team will be practicing independently, and then we get into fall camp, and it's when we're going to have our most complete roster. Hopefully, we'll be able to get some footage, some interviews out of the fall camp if we're allowed to, and we should be able to talk more about what UNLV is going to look like against Memphis.
Yep. We'll be back with those in the next couple weeks. If Pastner decides to sign anybody over the next few days, I'll have those up as well. I am interviewing Josh on Thursday, so look out for my interview with Josh Pastner. Yeah, like Mike said, go Rebels. Make sure you like and subscribe to all of our content.
Thank you for having me on. You have a great day.